I am so excited today to be here with Colleen and Jason Wachob. Not only do I have so much history with you guys, you were at the forefront of the wellness movement. Honestly, it was before wellness was as well known as it is now. For people who don't know you, Colleen and Jason are the co-founders and co-CEOs of MindBodyGreen, the leading independent media brand dedicated to wellness. They're also the co-authors of The Joy of Wellbeing and have been featured in the New York Times, Entrepreneur, Forbes, Fast Company, Vogue, The Megyn Kelly Show, and The Skinny Confidential. Jason has a BA in history from Columbia University, where he played varsity basketball for 4 years, and Colleen graduated from Stanford University with degrees in international relations and Spanish. They live in Miami with their two daughters. Oh, so I get it, Colleen, why Miami is the right fit for the Spanish major, huh?
That's true.
Are you fluent?
I was, and it's nice to be speaking it a lot more because I was on hiatus for about 25 years there.
Yeah. Well, my husband, the other Dr. Shah, he is fluent in Spanish, medical Spanish, because in med school, we had the opportunity to go to Mexico or Spanish-speaking countries to learn. I did alternative medicine and Eastern Chinese medicine. He did Spanish. He uses it much more than I do on a daily basis. So first of all, I wanted to go way back for people who may not know about your history. How did MindBodyGreen even start?
So I do want to say that you've been at the forefront with us. We've known you for over a decade, since the early days. And
days.
When we did our Revitalize event, you were a lifer, 6 for 6.
6 for 6. I'll tell you why. It's because, and once people kind of learn more about MindBodyGreen, if they don't know it, I think what happened is when I came to my first Revitalize, I was in traditional medicine. I was a doctor. I had no idea that there was this world of people who were interested in things like I was. And you'd think I would know because being in medicine, but now you both know that medicine is completely separated often from what's happening in the real world and what people are asking for, doing. And that first Revitalize, it kind of sparked something in me. And I know I've talked to other people who've said that Revitalize was a spark for them. I think Darshan, I met Shah. I think I met at one of the Revitalize, and we had a meeting the other day, and he was like, "Oh my God, we met each other like that at that Revitalize, and look, we're all both doing such different things." It kind of sparked something in me. I met so many really cool people. I saw what you guys were doing, and I literally thought to myself, I want to put myself around this energy. I didn't know now that I know more spiritual stuff, I realize it's like, that's what I was looking for, is like that energy of the people who are talking about things that I wanted to be doing. And I'm so grateful because my entire journey really started there.
I love that.
Well, you're very kind, and we're bringing back a version of it. So
I've heard some rumors from Colleen. I'm excited to hear more.
So the early days. So we go back 15 years. I was running another startup. It wasn't doing well. I was stressed. I was flying a lot. I flew over 100,000 miles domestic in 1 year. I'm 6'7", so me in a coach seat is not good for anyone involved, but specifically bad on my lower back. And you combine the stress, the lack of sleeping, too much alcohol. My idea of nutrition back then was steak and martinis at the Palm Steakhouse in Manhattan. I consumed so much. My face is on the wall in the Midtown Palm next to Adam Sandler and Joe Namath. But steak and alcohol is not the macros you're looking for. And so you combine the stress, the poor nutrition, the lack of movement. It was falling apart inside. And you combine an old basketball injury structurally and like physically, spiritually, there was like a combustion, if you will. I had 2 extruded discs in my lower back, pressing on my sciatic nerve, L4, L5, S1, excruciating sciatica. The right leg felt like a lightning rod. I couldn't walk. Walking brings me joy. If I don't get my 10,000 steps a day, I am a grumpy dinosaur. And it was really humbling. And I went to see a doctor, and he said, "You need back surgery." Nothing against surgery, but generally see it as a last resort. So I sought a second opinion, and that doctor said the same thing. I tried cortisol shots, didn't work. He said, "You need surgery. Maybe some yoga could help." but you're probably going to need surgery anyway. And I said, okay. Colleen and I were dating at the time. Colleen had a yoga practice. So I said, okay, let's try it out. Started with some really light yoga in the morning and evening, started to feel better, and looked at my life, took a lot of inventory, looked at nutrition, went from steak and martinis to eating less meat, switching to, grass-fed, eating more vegetables, just like eating more whole foods. And over the course of 6 months, I went from not being able to walk to being completely fine. And if you rewind, the word wellness back then was very new agey. It was equated with the spa.
Mhm.
Anything holistic was just like too out there. Preach to the choir of people living in the west side of LA or Brooklyn or Boulder. We all know the type. And nothing seemed to be approachable or share our view that true well-being was this East meets West approach, science-based and holistic. And it was a 360 view: mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and environmental well-being. And they were all connected. MindBodyGreen, one word, not three. And that was the inspiration for MindBodyGreen.
And then, and that was what year?
That was 2009, 15 years.
So were you were you overweight at that time? I'm just curious. The steak and martini diet, was it working for you?
I
Yeah.
actually wasn't.
Yeah.
I'm an ex-athlete.
Yeah.
Wasn't overweight, maybe slightly,
Yeah.
but not. You look at me and say I'm fit, but clearly I was kind of falling apart.
Mm.
Things were starting to catch up. Wasn't flexible, wasn't eating properly, and stressed.
And Colleen, you had a yoga practice back then. It was like, before I think yoga had I guess yoga was having its heyday back then too. I think it just got bigger and bigger and bigger over the years.
Yeah, I think yoga really had its moment like in the decade of the 2010s when we were living
Yes.
in New York and MindBodyGreen was headquartered in Brooklyn. That felt like the yoga mecca of the world.
Yes, I think it was.
It was a lot of fun.
So I know this is jumping a little ahead, but I want to know, are you still doing yoga?
This has been an evolution for us. And I think, our view is if you're going to be, there's a lot of rigidity in our world. And our view is be rigid about being flexible, so to speak. And so we went from yoga all the time. And for me personally, I look back, I say, wow, yoga saved my life. Yoga was everything. And I stopped doing resistance training. And we've done a 180 here in terms of all yoga to very little yoga. I'll speak personally. Now yoga went from, public classes every day, 60 to 90 minutes to 5 to 10 minutes, maybe once or twice a week on the weekends, to a focus on resistance training and eating more animal protein in an effort to maintain and build my lean muscle mass at approaching 50 years of age. And that's been an evolution for us.
Yeah. I wish I was doing more yoga, to be honest, but I also try to honor the season of life that I'm in. And right now it's about prioritizing resistance training, and I'll fit yoga in between sets at the gym and stretching. And I know my body loves and craves yoga, but with 2 small kids and someone who really does love in-person classes, I can't recreate that magic in my home by myself. It just doesn't have the same impact as the joy I get from an in-person class. But right now it's been a focus on resistance training and trying to build up my muscle.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think I'm with you guys because I think I realized that I was never doing weight training. I was only doing yoga and classes. And although I've kind of come back around again, I think I'm like you, Jason, how we're saying be flexible about, I think resistance training is so important. But then I went to my first yoga class in many, many months, 2 weeks ago. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I remember why, I need to do this more often. And so I'm trying to now that my kids are a little bit older and they have schedules of their own, I have a little more flexibility. And now my work schedule has changed a little bit. I have a little more flexibility to fit in some classes. So I actually have told myself, I'm going to incorporate it back into my life. again. So tell us, okay, so MindBodyGreen started 15 years ago. That's so crazy. When was it? Do you remember when you came on Rich Roll's podcast to talk about it?
Rich, I've been on twice. I think I was on in
The very
14,
beginning, right?
and then in like 2014, and then again in 2016.
Okay, I think 2014, because the first Revitalized was shortly
2014.
after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because that's when I was introduced to MindBodyGreens, when I heard you on Rich's podcast. And I've talked about this on multiple, I mean, I've literally talked about you in so many different settings, because I often say to people that I was looking for something new in my life, and I was working long hours. My kids were little, and I thought to myself, I was reading books. I had read Rich's book, which is why I knew about his podcast. And you were on his podcast. And Rich said, if you're someone who's in health, wellness, and you haven't heard of MindBodyGreen, you need to check it out. They're taking submissions. I mean, you're taking submissions, right, Jason? And Jason's like, yeah, so literally that day when I got to my office, I went to mindbodygreen.com and I started to see what like the submission guidelines were, and sent something to Carrie that day, I think at the end of that day. And so I always talk about that, because I think it's like, these little things that happen that kind of pave your journey. And it was really special to hear you on that. And it was like a few things were happening. I was looking for a place to have an outlet, because, as you know, you guys are no strangers to Western medicine, but Western medicine was nothing like I had thought it would be. And I thought, oh my God, I need to have some kind of outlet. I can't do this for 25, 30 years. So then it started out with that was when blogs were, it was a blog site at that time. And that's what everybody was doing, is like going to blog sites for information. But it's kind of changed over the years. So tell us more about that.
So yeah, there's been a shift in terms of how we produce content. So we still produce content on our website every day, but now we have a podcast. We produce content just for social on different social channels. We produce content in newsletter form for multiple newsletters. So we have a longevity newsletter, The Long Game. We have a functional food newsletter. Then we have the sleep newsletter. So there's content that just lives in the newsletters. We expanded into events, even to Revitalize, online education. So we have an amazing functional nutrition program, which you're part of, you're in.
Love it.
And then products and our supplement line. So we kind of evolved from a blog, so to speak, or just a pure content producer, to a well-being brand. And our belief is, sometimes you need a product to help you along the way, but you need information. Information is power. And you can have the best products in the world, but if you're not educated on them, you're going to kind of fall flat. And education is paramount, and it's a core value.
Yeah, and I've noticed that, and we'll talk about trends, but what I've noticed in the last few years, probably since the pandemic, is that my audience, and I think it's similar to yours, they want ownership over their choices. Like, I don't want to be telling people what to do, but I want to give them literacy, like literacy about their body, about their hormones, about their gut, so that they can make the right decisions for their own health, and trying to be as unbiased and balanced as possible. Of course, coming from our own views and backgrounds and biases. But I think that's been really the trend, is people want to know, like, okay, what is ashwagandha? What about collagen? What about protein? How much protein should I be having? And I think coming at it from like, hey, let's explain what's happening to your body, and then you decide, is the way I've thought best, and kind of being a guidance to, okay, this is what I do, not right for everybody, but this is what I do. What are you seeing as the trends in wellness? I think it's changed over the few years, especially over the last 10 years. But what are you seeing kind of that people are more interested in, or asking more of, or what's really kind of at the forefront?
I think what gets us up every day as parents of two girls is this wonderful trend around strong women, and that you have women who are ditching the cardio and filling up their plates, lifting heavier weights, and stepping into their power, both physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And I think it's this wonderful time in life that's coinciding as well with this resurgence in women's sports, which is so fun to watch, where women are really picking up their power in new and exciting ways. And it's what gets us out of bed every day, and one of the mantras of our team that everyone's really excited about.
I think if you rewind 10 years ago, a lot of the messaging was around scarcity. It was around deprivation. It was around eating less or just eating greens or cleansing and going on the treadmill. And ultimately, I think it was a disservice to women. And this idea that, we were conflating weight loss and health. And I think it's a lot more attractive to say, hey, you don't have to starve yourself, get on the treadmill and eat less. No, like, let's shift what's on your plate. You have to eat more protein. And instead, you don't have to lose weight. We have to turn that fat into muscle and change your body comp. That's empowering. And do that. You can get in the gym. You can do some body weight exercises if you're in a crunch, or kettlebells at home, but it's not about eating less. It's potentially about eating more and changing your body comp. And I think that's just a tremendous shift.
And I think this idea that you can build muscle at any age and that you can build brain cells at any age, that's something that I think is so empowering for people to learn, because I think society tells us we're done. Like, if you didn't make the 40 under 40, you're done. Like, just forget it. And I think, and I think what we're realizing now is that you actually can get stronger. You can build muscle. You can actually build bone, because whatever builds muscle builds bone. You can build brain cells. I mean, this study about the hippocampus growth just from walking 40 minutes 3 times a week. It's just, these are the kind of things that I think we need to hear more about. And I think especially with like what Colleen was saying with women's health, I think women for so long were following this diet culture of just like, hey, the goal is to be as skinny as possible. I don't know if you've seen all the Almond Mom TikToks, but it's so true. Like, it was all about diet and eating as little as possible to stay thin. And now it's kind of moved into this more empowerment, strong, stepping into your power and having more of that. So I know you guys went to Expo West this year, and I love going because I love to see the trends of what's coming up and coming. Did you make it?
Gracie was having a tonsillectomy, so it was the first
year since in like 15 years.
I know. Well, let me ask you this: what has been kind of Expo West is always kind of shows you what people are looking for in foods, especially health foods. What is the trends there? What kind of things do you see?
There are 2 that stick out.
You go first.
So one, I think protein. I think more functional
protein,
food,
everything.
protein, everything. Less plant-based. I think Impossible and Beyond have kind of failed publicly to some degree. And I think there's general alignment or consensus, if you will, that heavily processed foods are not good for you. And those are heavily processed. And if you're not an ethical vegan, you're probably a lot better off having a real grass-fed burger. So that's one, protein. 2, I think the anti-seed oils has some legs. The science is, I would say, developing. But I am seeing more and more companies, whether it's a company like Sweetgreen eliminating seed oils, or here in Miami, you have Michelin-starred restaurants like our neighbors here. If you're ever in Miami in Coconut Grove, Licks and Cruise Kitchen eliminated seed oils. Like it's a thing here. Or Elastica eliminated seed oils. Like these are real, like amazing, incredible restaurants. Or like, we're done with seed oils. So I think that has legs.
And then we were just talking with our editorial team yesterday about functional mushrooms, which have been part of the zeitgeist for some time now, moving even beyond supplements and into the functional food space, appearing in chocolate and, burgers and all other types of food options. So it's interesting to see, a trend like that have such longevity and transfer now to different categories and really being propelled a lot by social media.
And then, like, it's a cousin, it's the supplement, but like creatine Our
Yeah.
creatine taurine product is flying, and like it's women. These are first time creatine users, and it goes back to the bigger theme of like it's okay, like women getting in the gym. Creatine is safe. It's for everyone. It's not just for bodybuilders. It is like the most widely researched supplement, and it's great for brain, body, and bone health.
This is so interesting. Also, you mentioned functional chocolate somewhere in there, and I remember, I think one of Mind Body Green retreats, Sakara Life had some functional chocolates that they had sampled for people at the Revitalize, and I remember thinking, somebody out there needs to come out with more functional chocolates because that was like so amazing. But I've talked to a lot of people who say it's almost impossible. I don't know how they did it or if they even, whatever. But it's almost impossible to get chocolate that will hold the functionality of another.
Yeah.
We had sampled yesterday. Gia came out with it's a hazelnut crunch spread. I like couldn't stop eating.
I noticed that it was almost gone this morning when I went to shop.
Yeah. It's got maybe it should replace our so-called like healthy version of Nutella in our pantry because that is. But what I always found about the cup, I haven't been 15 times or whatever you've been, but what I always noticed about Expo West is that the year that I sampled anything and everything that was healthy, I was so sick for like 3 days after that. And it took me a while to realize, like, at the end of the day, even these super healthy, functional, organic, non-seed oil, high protein snacks, are still just snacks, and these are not supposed to be. Yeah, they're not supposed to be your full day's worth of food. And it just reminds me that, like, going back to, I'm a newer, high protein eater, especially for breakfast. I try to do 30 grams of protein in my first meal. And I actually think it's a game changer. And it has been. And I keep saying it to people. I'm like, I don't care if you're on a high protein or medium protein or low protein diet, but start with that 30 grams at the beginning of your day and try to see how you feel for the rest of the day. It just changes your focus, your energy, your mood, your cravings. That along with, I kind of do like a 30-33, so 30 grams of protein and then 30 grams of fiber, which we all know kind of is the base of, good gut health, and then 3 probiotic foods a day. That's maybe the hardest thing if you're not living in Miami or New York or LA. People are always like, oh my God, 3 probiotic foods. How do I even do that? But, yogurt and those cottage cheeses with probiotics, those are probiotic. And you could do apple cider vinegar and water. That's probiotic. So I think it's doable. How much?
Dare I say sourdough?
Yeah, sourdough. There you go. I like sourdough. And also, it's so funny because in Indian culture, there are so many fermented foods like dosa and South Indian Italy. There's all these fermented batters. And I always thought that fermented food, once you bake it or like, steam it or cook it, there's no utility to it. But I was talking to some scientists who said, there's bacteria that live in volcanoes. Like, and they're like, so you're still getting the benefits of fermented food. Of course, the more you eat it raw, the better, but there are still benefits to things like sourdough and fermented dosa in Italy, the South Indian foods that use a fermented dough as well. So I think those are things that are so easy to incorporate. How many, if you don't mind sharing, what does your diet now look like? I think you shared that you're eating a lot more protein. You're eating, what is a typical day? And it may be different for both of you because I know, everybody has kind of a different take on it, but I would love to hear more about that.
Well, I'm in a new phase of my training, and that's really fitness and exercise. And again, it's like with my youngest daughter being 5, I feel like it's finally the time where I'm able to like baby step into this. So I'm doing resistance training 4 days a week, doing, fun stuff on the other days, walking, whatever it may be to get in movement. I have a goal, and I'll say it's a goal right now of 150 grams of protein a day. And I'm about 145 pounds. And that is a stretch for me. Mm-hmm. And what I have found, like, as my way to start the day right, I fully resonated with what you said about breakfast, but I'll start with a shake that has MindBodyGreen's grass-fed whey in it. That's 25 grams of protein. It has fiber. I'll take MindBodyGreen's fiber. And then I also put in arugula and berries and lots of other things so that it's like that safety insurance where I'm like, I am taking care of myself at this first meal and getting that. And then if I go to the gym, I'll come back and I'll do Greek yogurt with another serving of vanilla whey protein this time, strawberries, put in the creatine in there, and leaving the house with about 60 grams of protein, where I'm like, I have started the day with a few insurance policies where if I get a little busy at lunch, because there'll be some days where I'm like, oops, I forgot lunch and it's like 2:00. That stuff happens to me. So I really like to set the mornings up for success. And I tend to go to these just like predictable staples that aren't complex, are super easy to do with the staples that we have at home.
You go to the office now, or this is like this is a MindBodyGreen branch in Miami? Are we talking about? Okay.
Yeah. It's an office of 2 right now.
I love that. Love it. So you work together.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
I'll do a similar version of what Colleen does, but I'll add a lot more calories in there. So I will add a ton of nut butter. I'll add a ton of veggies. Like I just need more. And I'll add probably another scoop of protein to make sure I get the calories up. I also go very heavy on fish. A lot of salmon, a lot of tuna, a lot of sardines. Those are like my top 3. I still eat meat. I don't eat as much. Something I found in this process, and again, like what works for me may not work for you. And I did a little N of 1 experiment where I was going heavier on fat in my smoothies and I was doing coconut milk. And my ApoB went through the roof. It went to 110. I was in the mid 70s. And dug a little deeper and I did the Boston Heart cholesterol test. And I found out that I am essentially a super absorber of saturated fat. And so essentially like coconut milk, which is plant-based, could kill me because it is so high in sat fat. And so I completely removed it and made a switch to just malk oat milk. I say malk because most oat milk is crap. The number 2 ingredient on Oatly is canola oil. And so just that switch, essentially, in 8 weeks, my ApoB went from 110 to 71.
I love that. I love that you're checking your biomarkers. I think that even for me, I think I'm always like, oh, I know what to eat. I'm nutrition and medicine. I've this is my thing, right? But honestly, checking really looking into your biomarkers can be so illuminating about so many different things. Your hormone status, your testosterone, hemoglobin A1C. I mean, things that you can really micromanage. And just like you do, I do the same thing. When I see my labs, I kind of think back I was on a journey where I was trying to eat more protein, eat more calories. And like you said, Jason, I started to add, nut butters, and I was adding, maybe eating a bit more than I typically do. And I was gaining, trying to gain muscle. And I had a biomarker test at that time. And it's weird because I have a really, really strong history of type 2 diabetes in my family. I mean, I think in South Asians, especially, we come from there's a lot of genetic links to it. And also, my dad, his 5 brothers, all have type 2 diabetes. And my hemoglobin A1C was it went from 5.2 to 5.7. And 5.7 is bad. It's pre-diabetes range.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, wait a second, something changed in the last 8 weeks or 12 weeks, I guess it was. And just like you, I did an N of 1 experiment. I was like, I think I'm just eating too much for me. And maybe it's good to eat more protein, but all that other stuff I was adding on with my smoothies and adding in. And I was able to get it right back down on the next one. And all I did was, go back to eating more leafy greens and more berries and less of the chocolate and the nut butters and all the stuff that I was adding to my protein to try to get more muscle or whatever. And so I think it is N of 1 for every single person. You can know that building muscle is great for you and that it's good to build your bone, but there's different ways to go about it, and you have to test things yourself. And I think the ApoB test is an amazing test for heart disease risk, and hemoglobin A1C, like fasting insulin is a great test. And I use those all the time for myself and other people to kind of say like, hey, let's tweak things here and see if we can get this down. And diet, I mean, changes everything, right?
Yeah, and I think it just, we're in this incredible age where there's so much testing available, and you can really take that testing and run with it. And to me, this was just so incredible in that, okay, coconut milk, I can live without that. And I can eat burgers. I'm just going to go for leaner cuts of meat. Like a leaner cut of meat is going to be better for me than coconut milk. And I like red meat. So this was incredible for me.
So how many times a week are you now incorporating red meat, both of you? I'm just curious.
So my ApoB is like childlike.
Yeah.
So I got my test and was like, I'm glad I like burgers because I'm going to have more.
You were 59.
Yeah.
Something
59. It was in the 50s.
Wow.
So yeah, but again, like, it goes back to, this power of testing and knowing, your body. And I think it's this wonderful combination of, there was this time in life where I was like craving burgers for the first time. And then when you have testing that validates that this isn't maybe something that's going to, have a negative impact on you, is a great kind of green light to lean into it a little bit more and marry the intuition with the science.
And I don't really have a hard and fast rule with regards to my meat consumption. I just generally want to make sure it's incredible. And so there'll be a couple of weeks where I don't have any. And then there'll be a couple of weeks where I maybe have it like 3 or 4 times a week, because like there's just incredible meat to be had, whether it's like, Father's Day and we're doing pasture raised pork ribs. And I'm like, these are amazing. Or
really good.
we would go to a restaurant, they've got a grass-fed burger and it looks ridiculous. So like it'll depend. I don't have.
Yeah, I think our only hard and fast rule is when we're having meat, it's really good quality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good rule to have with that. Okay, you guys are at the forefront still. Continue to be at the forefront, I would say, of wellness, health trends. What do you foresee in the future? Because I think in the next few years now are like, I don't know, I think of this kind of as a post-pandemic, years, but then there's going to be something else that's going to be so important coming through. Do you see things that are like emerging?
I think where we sit in terms of personalized medicine is really exciting. It's becoming more concrete in terms and accessible. Everything from a full body scan like Pernuvo, which we both did and loved, can pick up something small to something very significant. It can potentially save your life. That's really powerful. On cardiovascular disease, the Clearly test, which takes essentially a 3D MRI of everything around your heart, which can also be life-saving, to all the genetic testing and the lab work. And I think we sit, I think data without insights is kind of useless, but I think we're getting to the place where we're getting real data and leveraging them for insights, which could lead to lifestyle or pharmaceutical interventions, which is my next segue, where I think we sat into a place in our world formerly where there was a stigma around medication and pharmaceuticals. And I think those worlds are colliding, where lifestyle may only be able to get you 80 to 90% of your full potential in terms of health span, or what we like to say, joy span. But pharmaceutical may be able to get you 100% there, whether it's taking a low dose statin, which could really take your heart disease risk off the table. Peter T is a huge proponent of that. To maybe low dose Ozempic for people who are looking at, or Cialis for anti-aging benefits. And I think the worlds are colliding, where we're seeing people in our space tinkering with lifestyle and pharmaceutical in terms of anti-aging and leveraging data in a way we haven't before. And I think that's the future. I think the worlds are colliding.
Yeah, in the 2010s, the wellness movement, I think, was lacking in science. And the science that was there was very bro-centric in terms of the experts. And now the wonderful thing that's happening in the 2020s is there's these incredible voices, many of them women like you, who are leading the charge, whether it's you, Stacey Sims, Vonda Wright, Gabrielle Lyon. And we're realizing how we can take this science and best harness it for bodies and also women's bodies, which have, different biological needs. And so it's a really exciting time for people who are excited and empowered about taking control of their health.
I actually really agree with you, Jason. I think what I've been so interested in is I was never seeing patients on kind of like the, I don't know what you want to call it, like wellness side, because I have a medical practice still that I'm still like working 2 days a week at. And I just thought, well, I want to be able to do more of these things, content and podcasts and speaking. But I really see a need for doctors to step into the space of combining the medical, and like I can prescribe somebody minoxidil and finasteride for their hair, like a topical, and then they can take something, all of the supplements, and they take all of the foods that can also help them with their hair. It's like a combined approach. Or, for perimenopausal women, you can start some hormonal creams, estrogen or testosterone, and that can be used in combination with all the other things you're doing for your gut, your mind. And so I'm starting to realize, like, wow, even though I don't necessarily want to have this huge concierge, wellness practice, I don't think it's something that I, want to spend all my time doing. I think there is a role for using kind of that combined expertise of like, hey, what medicate? Maybe somebody, like you said, could use a little bit of a statin combined with a dietary change, but really microdosing for all of those things rather than the mass dosing that we have. So tell us on your front, I want to hear, what is MindBodyGreen up to, and where can people kind of find out more about what you're doing? Anything that you're working on? Are there books in the works? Like, I want to hear all of it.
So MindBodyGreen is still everywhere. So mindbodygreen.com, or we have our podcast, MindBodyGreen, which I'm the host of, or every social media channel. We're still focused on producing incredible, best-in-class, science-based, holistic content, really focused on building out our educational program. So your program, which you're in, the functional nutrition training, is incredible. We just added some new instructors. Darshan Shah is now an instructor. Which is amazing. Building out our product line, really focused on women also who really want to help build and maintain lean muscle mass. So our creatine product is a big focus, our whey protein. And would you add anything, Colleen?
I think you covered it. We have 3 newsletters: functional food, sleep, and then the long game, which is focused on longevity. So where you can really get the TLDR, so you don't have to listen to 4 hours of podcast to kind of get the nuts and bolts of what you need to know to change your life.
I just wanted to thank you guys for being such a big part of my journey. I've realized as I've started to become, I've always had the body part pretty well nailed down. And I think I started the mindset piece, and then the spiritual piece just more recently. And I think that what I've learned is like, really go back and thank the people, and tell the people that have been really helpful for you in many ways, not just, my journey, but I think I loved, being a part of this family that, was revitalized and still is MindBodyGreen. And I've been, and as I grow, I always think of the things that really helped me grow so I can do the same for others, and back to you as well, because I think we're all kind of in the same space. And where I see myself going is really doing more of what you're talking about, Colleen, is like, I think, as a woman from my family, nobody in my family worked outside of the home. Like in India, I mean, most women didn't work outside of the home. And in my family, it was like, people didn't get secondary educations. They didn't have careers. And I just feel like I'm so lucky to be able to have all this schooling and training. And I feel a really big sense of responsibility to kind of help women, especially in this kind of perimenopause, women over 40 space, which seems like it's forgotten, where nobody's telling us how to eat, how to live, how to be, and do more in that space. So Thank you again for being here. Where can people find you? I know you all have your personal socials and websites, all of it.
Yeah, so mindbodygreen.com and mindbodygreen on all handles. And then personally, we're just at Jason Wachob and at Colleen Wachob on Instagram.
Thank you again so much. I can't wait to hear what's going on in Miami. If you're ever in the Scottsdale area, you have to come visit. Colleen, my mother-in-law actually moved out of Palos Verdes in California. So we don't even get to visit anymore. We just go to, she's more in like the Anaheim area. So we kind of go there. Have you been back to California?
We're going in 2 weeks.
I love it. Yay. That's your vacation.
Exactly. See grandma and grandpa.
Oh, so your grandpa. Oh, I love it. And lots of love to the girls. And we will, let's connect on all the fronts soon.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We're so grateful for your friendship, everything you do. It's an honor to know you. And thank you.